Start video transmission. And I think we're live. I don't know. I gotta refresh here and make sure that we're going live or not.
Refresh.
It's always my
Yep,
favorite part.
you're alive.
Yay!
We are
haw.
live. Woohoo!
We're
Okay.
woo!
Welcome to Plausible Deniability, everybody.
Yeah.
Johnny is off. I'm Michael Cross,
I'm Brook Bullock.
and our
And
special
I'm Jerry
guest,
Beckers.
Jeremy.
I'm a guest.
Gerbs.
Yay!
We love
Woo!
having our guests on, and it is so awesome. It is so awesome. And so, for the people who don't know, Jeremy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
You're alive. My name is Jeremy Beckers. I'm a longtime gamer. I'm a big fan of Red Dirt D&D. If you've been to any of the cons, if you've seen like a bald dude lurking around talking to all the cast members, that was probably me. I've been playing role-playing games since high school. My first start was with Werewolf the Apocalypse, an old White Wolf game, and I've played
Oh
every
yeah.
system I can get my hands on, from D&D to Traveler to, just tons of stuff. Just anybody puts a game in front of me, I try to play it. And,
That's
It's
awesome.
been fun. And I've really enjoyed getting to know the cast of Red Dirt D&D and sharing all their passions on this show. Plausible Deniability is just a really fun gathering, and I'm really excited to be a part of it. So thank you guys for the opportunity.
Woo! That's super exciting. It was hard because Johnny gave us a couple suggestions. He's I'm totally making the story up, by the way, but Johnny won't know. And so gave him a couple of suggestions. He said, "Hey, if you that'd be awesome to have a guest, but their hair quality, needs to be like his is high and tight, and their name has to start with J." And so that was kind of a weird Venn diagram, but
There was one
Michael Cross
little piece that fit in that. Yes.
Michael Cross jumped at the chance as soon as I was typing germs into the chat. He was like, "Yes."
Definitely germs. It's
My
fantastic.
hairstyle has split off yet again.
Yeah. You make me feel better without them in my hair there. Looks good. So, Jeremy, how long have you been playing D&D?
I think I've been playing D&D since probably about 20 years now.
Wow.
I started in 3.5, or sorry, 3.0
Uh-huh.
was my first real introduction to it, and it was my favorite system for a long time. And I've played 3.5 and Pathfinder. I skipped over 4th edition because I was
Everybody
kind of
did.
grumpy about how it affected.
Everybody skipped over.
Yeah, it affected my favorite novels, the R.A. Salvatore novels at the time.
Yes,
Quite
it
a
did.
bit, and I was grumpy about it.
Uh-huh.
So I was very, very.
Well, it's
resolute
hard.
to
It's
not-
hard to jump 100 years into the future and still have your human characters of Regis and Caddy Bree. How are you going to have them? Because it's easy for him to live for 100 years, or for the dwarf to live for 100 years. But
Bruenor.
what do you do with that? And
He did the best he could. I mean, he was tasked with an impossible writing mission,
right.
and then I feel bad for him because when the 4th flopped, 5th guy came out and it's returned to the old things. So,
Yeah.
but once again,
Did
he's
Dritz-
a great writer.
I haven't read that far into the book. So how did that work? Did Dritz come out of a shower and it was all a dream?
No,
edition,
the,
or-
the spell plague happened and Caddy died. Caddy Bree died.
These are some huge spoilers, by the way.
These are
Wait,
30-year-old,
people have
20-year-old
10 years to read it.
spoilers.
You're right. You're right.
These
10 years
20-year-old
is long.
spoilers. Because she comes back. Caddy Bree.
She comes
What way he did it was he killed off Caddy Bree, killed off Regis, and they end up going to kind of a goddess purgatory. Kind of waited around until they could be called back in time, and then that's what they did. Once 5th edition came back, then everybody died by that time. Bruner had died, and the barbarian.
Wolfgar.
Wolfgar had died, and so they all met in this place, and they all came back to save Drist when he was at his lowest point, just about to die himself. And so, yeah, I actually read all the Drist novels. That's why I'm going to try to read all of the Kryn novels, all the Dragonlance novels.
Dragonlance. Yeah,
They're really good.
But
I don't think I've read all of them, but I've read most of them.
I read all the because I was bored, and so I thought, hey, well, I'm not really bored so much as during my downtime, I've got nothing else to read. Why don't I just read all these? And it took me 2.5 years,
Yeah,
but
it's a lot.
yeah,
It's a good chunk.
yeah. So I figure I can eventually do that with Dragonlance. It'll take me probably 3-4 years because that's even more books.
The storyline's great, and the Greyhawk
Yeah.
universe is really immersive.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the common, like of course, Lord of the Rings is the progenitor of most of the stuff that we like, but Dragonlance really did bring a lot of the common tropes and ideas of what the character should be.
Yeah.
And I think Cleric Quintet, which is R.A. Salvatore's other book
I've read that
series,
one too. Yes.
he was bucking a lot of the trends of what the ideas of a cleric, of what a rogue, what a barbarian are, and I like that contrast. I think R.A. Salvatore is probably my favorite overall fantasy writer because his work can be enjoyed by pretty much all ages.
Mm-hmm.
It still has like the action and all that stuff while being mostly PG. Some of the Menzo Brenzan stuff gets a little racy, but nothing explicit.
Yeah. Well,
go ahead.
Well, and he did what you were talking about, kind of bucking the trends. In the quintet is when we get introduced to Pickle, a dwarven druid. And I was thinking, like, at this time, you could not be a druid and be a dwarf. You could not, in first edition, that was illegal.
Yep.
You couldn't. There was only certain classes that races could play, and only certain levels they could get to. And so having a druid dwarf was unheard of. And of course, one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, Pickle's awesome.
Yeah,
Quinn is one of my favorites as well. I really like him quite a bit. There's what was the gnome's name? The silver can't say it. The deep gnome.
Oh,
this
Phil. Oh, now I've got it.
I can't. That's not even.
I'm not going to try to say it because
yeah.
Yes. That whole. And the whole underground world and all that, it's just really good. It's really fun. Well, and I was so glad to see that the 5th edition be in the Forgotten Realms, because there's a lot between the Sword Coast and the Icewind Dale area and just everything. There's a lot to be explored and a lot of rich storytelling to be had. So
the stories with where Jarlaxle just went off and did some adventuring on his own with, those were some great stories as well. Yeah. And again, he bucked the trend about what drow are supposed to be, and so much so that now drow are not considered evil. They have actually redeemed themselves, and the newest books have actually introduced a whole new set of drow that they've gone to visit up in the north, that Jarlaxle and Cady Bree have gone to visit, that they're exactly like the drow, except they never were underground and they never worshipped Lolth. And it's like, yes, that's what it should be. And they're warriors, who live up in the way far north, up in the icy areas. So that's really cool what R.A. Salvatore's able to do.
He's kind of looking at the way that Dungeons and Dragons is becoming more inclusive over time, and trying to get away from stereotypes and racial issues, and be more accepting and making. I was kind of concerned when in 4th edition, especially when they got rid of the alignment system.
Right.
I was really like, well, this is going to be rough. How are you going to play these? How are you going to have these really deep moral issues that define, the villains from the heroes, and give you these really cool storylines that have a lot of dilemmas to solve, and moral quandaries that really are fun to play through.
Mm-hmm.
I was worried that would be taken away, and it was more like a video game and would lose that kind of depth and that kind of a teaching moment. But R.A. Salvatore was once again ahead of the curve, talking about making the individual the center of the story, not their history. And so, in that light, it feels more acceptable. It's harder to be all stoic and grumpy about, oh, you're changing my game.
Yeah.
And giving people the freedom to express their character as an individual, is really good. I mean, I like to play evil characters once in a while. I think it's like, especially lawful evil, having that strict code, but also bending it to your will for gain. It's an interesting character type to play, I think. And it really lets you in on some of your own idiosyncrasies. Like, oh gosh, maybe there's a little darkness lurking in there. But it's interesting.
Yeah, you got to play the dark character every now and then.
Come on, I'm gonna be honest.
Hey, Benjamin Thomas in the chat, Germs, he says, Drow are evil. You know this,
Yeah.
Jeremy.
Well,
He
and
knows better. He's a
I
good
think
fan, too. Don't let him fool you.
yeah, what I love about 5e is, or what they're hopefully going to do in the next edition of Dungeons and Dragons, is that it's more about nurture than nature. You aren't born a certain way. You are yes, granted, a majority of the Drow are evil because they've lived under Loth, they've lived underground, they've lived in the society that is inherently evil. But you can break away from that. And that was exactly when Jarlaxle talks to Drist a lot and says, dude, you were the image that a lot of the male Drow now look up to. We want to change. We want to come out into the light. And we now look to you as the example of how we can do that. So, while he gets all moody and stuff, Jarlaxle has to kick in the butt.
Yeah. I think it's I don't know. It's really good writing. I don't want to get too deep into the spoilers, but yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
I think if anybody's looking for a good fantasy series to read, you can't go wrong with any of the Ari Salvatore stuff.
Yeah.
Icewind Dale trilogy is a great place to start. You'll fall in love with the characters. A lot of good, solid, like standard characters and what's we're looking for, like classic portrayals of the different races and the different like societies. And then once you get into the Drow world, it is amazing. It's really a different thing, and it's fun.
Yeah, and his whole world building, basically taking Ed Greenwood's world and then adding so much flavor and so much color to these different parts of the world. Especially, I think of like Luskan, which has evolved from the very beginning to being a really, really horrible place to it's not really still the greatest place to live, but under Jarlaxle, at least it's a little bit more civilized than it was when it started, when they were executing people out in public,
Yep. It's neat.
So,
not the executions, but like the way that the world has changed over time.
And it has. I mean, it's been 100 years, 150 years. So it's been really neat to watch that change.
Neverwinter itself, the city being the hub of like all this activity, really makes it a good anchor, and all the changes happening around it, and all these cool characters and like tributes to them. It's fun.
There you go.
Yeah, I really think I think it's awesome that there can be so much variability in the Dungeons and Dragons worlds, like from Greyhawk to this to Eberron, and I think it's neat to see the different authors and different worlds expand in a certain way. And I think it fuels players to create their own worlds and their own characters and feel confident and expressing themselves. I think it's one of the magical things about Dungeons and Dragons, but role playing in general.
Yeah,
that's what it always felt like to me. It always felt like that. And Dragonlance 100% did this, but Salvatore always felt like, that was world building, maybe at his own table. I mean, I don't think that he actually had a table with these characters, but he took the D&D shell, the Greyhawk shell, and then built it out. Oh, there's underground subterranean complexes in the Underdark. Well, what are those? And he just put them into novel form and shared them with the world. Yeah. And we can all do that. That's a really cool thing.
Yeah.
So. And filled it with really cool, interesting characters, and all the conflicts and the human experiences we have reflected in those characters is really cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
And when a world like Forgotten Realms has been around for, 40 years now, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and they keep adding to it. So it's really been phenomenal. That's the world that we're going to get the Dungeons and Dragons movie in.
I'm excited.
Is in Faerun.
Yep. Do you think we'll see some Drow?
If we don't, it would be a shame.
My only problem with having Drow is they've got to be really careful with that, and they know that. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I'm not, because
that's another conversation we should have about Dungeons and Dragons being self-aware.
Well, they just can't seem to get it right. But go ahead, Michael.
Well, we'll get to that in a moment. But I mean, an example is the Community episode, where one of the characters does the full blackface Drow, and it's like, and of course now that's so, and of course that's why Drow now are less just black and more of like a grayish, bluish skinned,
purple mixed in.
Yeah, so I think they're going to they could do that, but you just got to be really careful about how you do that and how you portray the Drow. And yes, D&D has gotten into trouble recently for putting out a almost 50-year-old race that is not ready for the 21st century. So
Yeah.
Controversial.
I mean, you just you have to, I have to admit. So we're talking about the how to see, right?
Yeah.
So you have to admit, I have to admit that I thought, well, really, surely it's not that bad because I haven't made it all the way through, Spelljammer yet. And so as I grabbed it and opened up, and then when I saw it, I was like, oh God,
yeah,
oh my goodness, who did not take this through, the sensitivity culture guy at
Yeah.
do they have one? Like, oh my gosh, I think the one that just jumped off the page at me was unfortunately they have a bard, and the instrument, kind of this older mandolinish kind of instrument that he's playing, and then his body posture, it's straight up from like the Jim Crow era, making fun of the minstrels. You just see them side by side, and you're like, oh my gosh, what are you thinking? How did that get by anybody? And I'm going to believe that there wasn't any intent at all with this. They just didn't realize
right.
how bad it sounds as soon as you put on those glasses.
But a company as big as Wizards and as profitable as they are with all their different franchises and IPs, they should have at least put a little bit of effort into hiring a sensitivity analyst to see what they're looking at. It's a big oversight. I feel like Paizo with Pathfinder has done a much better job of that.
Yeah.
They're in the unique position. They have mostly original content, so they can start with that. I don't think that after reading, because I didn't know much about the Hadozi at all, but after reading about some of the the situation, I don't think the original content even had, like, the content itself, the creation of the characters and their background, had any desire to like exploit the idea or make light of the idea. I think they were trying to probably reflect on history. It's kind of hard to go back 50 years and judge their intent.
Right.
It's like saying the Cosby Show, they talked about racial stuff, and some of it was inappropriate, but at that time that was bleeding edge, talking about these real issues that were there. And so I think sci-fi, fantasy, nerd culture in general, we're all mostly like inclusive and thoughtful humans. We really do. We've been lucky and collected a lot of the best people in society that enjoy each other and try to make things more like inclusive and tackle societal issues. I don't think that there was any harm meant. Now, the artists that did some of the illustrations, that's a little different. They may have had inspirations we don't know about, but I think the race itself, after reading the book, reading some of the content to get my own feel of it, I think they were trying to show the strength of Uprising and how, and like, this is just after the Civil Rights Movement. They have been trying to show, listen, these awesome characters came from oppression, and look, now they're just as powerful and in some cases better than some of the other choices.
It's mostly in wording. I think that was the problem, and they can't. That's why they changed the word. And I yes, I think Connor had said on Discord that it just shows that they need to be a little bit more diversified, and it's true. I think everybody does. I mean, that's the problem, is that we get stuck in our own little bubbles, and so Wizards needs to have more of that. And I know they're trying, so it's not like, but the fact that they did come out. They did apologize. The fact that they immediately changed it. Now, granted, they can only change it on the digital. The books are still out there, so there's only so much you can do. But at least they did come out and admit their mistake, fix the problem, and which is so much better than some companies I've seen who just try to ignore the problem and hope it goes away. So,
100%, 100%. I think and it is hard because, as humans and as creators, even artists, many times artists have a model or some type of object that they're looking at to shape the drawing as they craft that. And so we look at past human analogs, like we all know in our world, well, Star Trek, if I just completely jump for a minute, like we know what the Klingon analog is here, and we know you know,
Yeah.
and you know what that, you know, the elves, we know that analog, or in Pathfinder, Taldor, or uh, or Cheliax, those nations in Golarion, you know who those analogs are, like the Roman analog
Mhm.
Mhm.
and so on. And so they were just grabbing the analog of an oppressed people that rises up. But Michael, man, you're exactly right. The wording sometimes to be
It
like
just
that,
yeah.
you know, some of them enjoyed working for the people. No, no,
Yeah, I
no
know.
slave
No, no.
ever enjoyed
Yeah.
working for the man. I mean,
No, no. It's
no.
yeah, and
They just
that's
should have they should have invested a little more time, a little more effort into making sure they went through this content. And
Yeah.
yeah.
now the,
Hal in the chat suggests a grandma to slap him upside the head and say, quote, "Have you
I
lost
saw
your
that.
damn mind?"
Yeah.
Have you lost your damn mind? Yeah.
A sensitivity grandma. That's what everybody needs. Just, you know,
Yeah. Be careful. Some grandmas are not as sensitive.
That's true.
check for memorabilia in the background.
Yeah.
Like, oh, maybe not
Depends on
that.
depends on somebody's grandma. Just make
depends.
Yeah.
sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Noel
Grandma.
grandmas. I hear they're just the worst. They're just. I say that just because Ash just jumped into the chat. I saw them over there. So
So, have you guys, either of you guys, been watching Rings of Power yet?
yes. Oh,
I'm-
Oh, no, we won't
Um,
spoil it. But Brooke, did you go see it at Rodeo
I
Cinema?
didn't. I did not. I had other responsibilities that evening that I had promised people I would be at, and I considered finding the way to cancel because Rodeo Cinema here in Oklahoma City, um, you know, played episode 1 and 2 on the big screen,
Yeah.
and I could imagine what that would be like. I'm in love with it. I know it's kind of like the Lord of the Ring movies. It doesn't follow the Silmarillion exactly, you know. So far, it's not like The Hobbit is for me. Like the Hobbit movies
Oh
are
gosh,
great
no.
movies. They're not The Hobbit, but they're great movies. Like it's in between. It's in between those two for me. I'm really enjoying it so far. Um, if I have a nerd moment that's not a spoiler, I think I can do this without spoiling. I was having a conversation with one of my daughters, and my daughter, after seeing episode 2, said, "Wow, it's obviously like kind of being backwritten, but when Galadriel says, 'I have passed the test and will now diminish and go to the west,' you could make a really good case that what test has she passed,
Yeah.
right? By refusing the ring, and I'm just super excited about it. Like, you know, because I mean, the new Galadriel is kick. She's really
she's
great.
fabulous. Yeah.
I love her a lot.
And it's a lot. The first 2 episodes are a lot of place setting. They
Tons.
do a lot. So they got about halfway through the second episode, and I said, "Honey," I told my wife, I said, "Honey, we're not actually even in the story yet. This is still just setting you up for the story. So get ready."
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's really good.
For any kind of the TV or movie dramatizations of like literary stuff, you've really just got to accept it as its own animal.
Yeah.
'Cause
Oh
it's
yeah.
impossible, to recreate these pictures, these videos in these guys' minds. The writers have an inexhaustible amount of words,
Yeah.
which don't always translate to CG or actor or setting budgets.
Yeah.
So you just got to be able to just enjoy it for what it is and go back. And I know for some folks it's hard when they're really devoted or really big fans of the literature, but
And that was the thing with Lord of the Rings. You just kind of had to forgive some of the elves. Never showed up at Helm's Deep. I mean,
No.
there were things that were in there, but they explained. I mean, actually, Peter Jackson explained. It's like the other races were fighting other battles in other parts in the book, but I couldn't show that. So I wanted to show that the other races were coming to, at least the elves were coming to the aid of the humans, without having to go to that place and show that didn't have characters that we didn't know. So Yeah, it made a lot of sense. There were some things that were sort of forgivable, and then some things that I kind of went in the book. And I love the movie. I can watch that movie every time. Uh, but sometimes I also go, "Oh, Peter, what were you thinking? Really?" Yes.
I
Um,
said that. I said that every few minutes in The Hobbit.
oh,
But
The Hobbit. See, and I
but
just
you
I
know,
just liked The Hobbit so much because it just why did you make it into 3 movies? Just make it into one movie. That's all you
and
need.
and
Because
pig
money.
mounts. I mean, I get it, but come on,
I
no.
mean, in the
You know,
1970s, they had it in 1 hour.
Mhm.
The cartoon was 1 hour.
The cartoon was amazing. That to
Yeah,
me,
me
that's my
too.
original, like in my mind's original story. I still have if there's a whip, there's a way in my head. Like
Well, that's from Return of the
oh,
King.
that was Return of the
yay!
King. That's right. Sorry, that
Yeah,
wasn't the Hobbit. Yeah,
yeah. But The
that's
Hobbit was,
really
I
cool.
and yes, yes, there were massive amounts cut out of The
Yeah.
Hobbit to make it into 1 hour. But the fact that they
Yes.
could still tell the entire story in 1 hour, and it took Peter Jackson 11, or as I like to say, you can actually read The Hobbit in shorter time than it takes to watch the movies.
Yeah.
It's
I
just
felt the same way about Game of Thrones, though. Um,
Hundred
it,
percent.
it, I was a hardcore book lover. I read the first 4 books, and then the 5th book came out, and I was like, I have to read all 4 of the other ones first to
yeah,
read to watch this again, or read this again. And it was very different in many ways in the show as compared to the books. And at first, it was hard for me. It's like, oh my gosh, you're missing out on some of the best content.
mhm.
But it's impossible. George R. R. Martin is a huge prolific. Like the scenes he paints in those books are so grandiose that
Yeah.
it is really it's an impossible task.
Yeah,
And but what surprised me was there was a lot of content that was added. Like you said, like for instance, like the elves not showing up at the Battle of Helm's Deep. In Game of Thrones, there are other scenes where characters don't meet in the books, they do in the show. But it was delightful. It's like, oh, this is something I couldn't get in the book. I've
right.
always wondered, what would it be like if these 2 characters met up, and it happened, or they take a different line. There were sometimes they combined 3 or 4 characters into one person to
Yes.
cover all the storyline, and it made that one character ultra like rich as far as the content went.
Right.
And I just had to learn to just let go of the junk that I had in my head and enjoy the show for what it is, and celebrate that a nerdy like fantasy world was being put on the big screen in a way that had never happened in my life.
Yeah.
So
And because of that, it has rolled into so many other things. I mean, the success Michael, you've said this probably 100 times, already, and that's why no matter how terrible the D&D movie is, we've got to go see it.
Yes.
Go to see it once and hate it, and then go see it again and heckle it with your friends.
Yes.
If it's bad, right? Because if we just keep building the success ladder,
Yep.
it will draw in producers and money and
Yeah.
the things we love.
Yeah.
So,
and right now D&D is so popular. I
Yes.
mean, I'm amazed it's taken this long for if it is as good as I hope it's going to be, a really good effort at making a cinematic version of D&D. This could be the beginning of a series of, hopefully a trilogy or so or more of
Yeah.
movies. There's so much content in just like we still haven't seen anything made of the Dritch series or
Right.
the Greyhawk world that's serious. They haven't
Yep.
put any real money and casting into it. But I never thought I'd see anything like Game of Thrones happen on HBO. I'm like,
Right.
what are they
Oh,
going to
yeah.
do with this? And they tried really hard to make an HBO show that was just smut. But
I know.
but people that came through and said, listen, we want more of the story.
Yeah.
And by the end of the show, people were clamoring for more storyline and less of the stereotypical HBO content. And it really made me excited about the future of cinema as far as fantasy and hopefully sci-fi as well.
Well, and
Yeah.
especially when you look at the spinoff now of House of Dragons, which I was afraid we're going to go back into. It's just going to be it's basically fantasy porn again, and it's not. They
I still
actually
haven't watched that either. I'm so far behind on my nerdiness.
they did.
I actually haven't watched it yet because I was afraid of that reason, Michael. So it's good
not,
for me to
it's
hear.
not. I mean, it's actually really good story. Of course, Matt Smith, who is the 11th Doctor, is phenomenal. And I won't. This is not a spoiler, but I will let you know that, of course, he was in this past episode that aired Sunday night, And he was so amazing. I had to turn to my wife at the end of it and go, I don't think Matt Smith actually had a line in that entire episode. And yet he spoke volumes without
awesome.
actually speaking one line. And that's how phenomenal of an actor he is. And that's why I absolutely love the fact that he's been cast in it. So yeah, do watch House of Dragons. It's very, very good. So let's go old school because Jeremy is a big fan of this obscure movie called Kroll.
All time.
Kroll is back in the chat, baby.
So we're gonna talk Kroll. If you haven't seen Kroll yet, I don't know. Pause this video and go watch it real quick because it's
Just
so
put
good.
Put it on your list. I think.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it's available on anymore. It used to be on Amazon. For a while, but
What did
I
I
had to
watch
buy
it at? I think because okay, so I just watched it like maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. I think maybe it's on HBO Max.
Okay, cool.
Anyway,
It's one of those movies you might be able to find just on YouTube in parts, you know.
yeah,
So-
more than
You
likely.
should pay for it still. It still has that much panache.
I will tell you this: go check out the Metropolitan. If you're in Oklahoma City, go check out the Metropolitan Library System. I know they have a DVD copy of it.
There we go.
there you go.
And more than likely, wherever you live, if you found your library nearby library, they probably have a DVD copy of Kroll.
You're right. HBO Max has Crawl,
Okay.
and you can buy it. You can rent it on Amazon for the low price of $3.99.
$3.99. It's
That's
worth it. It is worth it. Let me tell you.
Anybody
Michael
who
Cross,
wants
you need to
it,
pick that up. So if the apocalypse happens, you have a copy.
Yeah,
That's right.
my
It is. Go ahead.
Go, Jeremy. Go.
go, Jeremy. Go.
I'm going to warn you. It's a little cheesy because it's an '80s film.
Yes.
And it has '80s hair, it has '80s clothes, but it has a young Liam Neeson.
Yes, it does.
If
And
nothing
Liam
else
Neeson
draws
is.
you to this. It's Liam Neeson as a supporting character. No taken lines.
Yeah.
But
He is phenomenal.
The reason I love it so very much is because it is the best fun portrayal with serious implications, like the world-saving stuff, of a D&D or role-playing party that I have ever seen on the silver screen. It is really a great depiction of what a bunch of ladies and gentlemen around, and I use those terms loosely, around a table, the kind of hijinks they get up to. And every character has their place in the party, and they all contribute to the story. And it's exactly what I like all of my D&D games that I run or that I'm a part of.
Yeah.
I like to make sure everybody gets their time at the table to be the hero. And I think Kiri recently in one of the Red Dirt D&D chat on Discord said that she wants every player to feel like they're the main character
Yes.
at some point.
Yeah.
And I think that's an amazing way to look at it because once again, back to the inclusivity, you want everybody to have fun. You want everybody to be part of the story. You don't want any, unless they just want to be a wallflower because they're learning. You want them to have their chance to contribute. And a good GM will find a way to make that happen, or at least allow it to happen if the player does want that kind of chance.
Yeah. The reason I also think, and as I was watching it, the biggest problem with it is not just a little cheesy; it's a little overacted, which is a lot of them do overact a little bit much. The main character, Cole, he's trying to be so hard to be a whiny type of, Luke Skywalker going Tashi Station type of to the very beginning, so that by the time he gets to the end, he's the hero. But it's so much that you're like, it's like nails on a chalkboard. But it's the older guy who's leading them. He's so. I mean, it's so off. And it's like, don't be a Shakespearean actor here on the. You just
he was out of place.
Yeah,
he was way too. What's the word I'm looking for?
Too much of a ham.
Yeah, it was fun.
But
you just got to overlook those things.
Yes, but what is great about it, and what I loved about it watching this time, was something that I hadn't realized before, was how it reminds me of D&D is the world building. Oh my gosh. And so much that gets left on the table, and I think got left on the cutting room floor. There was so much information. I wanted to know more about the Cyclops. That in itself was something that was phenomenal. The very beginning, when you have the the talk about the prophecy about she would choose a man and together they would rule the world and their son would rule the galaxy. And I'm like, how did he get from that? How? That I want to know. That's the story I want to know. I want to see the sequel to Kroll.
Absolutely.
And I don't know why no one has made it.
Reboot. Not even the reboot. That's the sequel we need. That's the nostalgia we need.
It's been 30 years. Just jump 30 years and let's tell that story about their child who is now apparently ruling the galaxy. And
that's what we need. We need a Kroll 30 years in advance with Last Starfighter mashup. We know they're out there somewhere. They beat.
Keep my money.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm totally down with that.
Especially
there was Last Starfighter sequel in the making. You guys know that, right?
That's what I heard. Yeah, I heard there's a sequel. So.
Oh, it's got to be better special effects than that. The very early computer animated Last Starfighter. Oh my gosh!
But the practical effects in that show took the cake. They were excellent. When
the practical effects were really good.
Yeah, the costume of the aliens, like the guys, the hammerhead aliens, and the guy at the end with the "We die."
Yes.
Like how many times has that been quoted at the dinner table playing
at the D&D table, right?
What do we do now?
What do we?
We die.
It's yeah.
I think that one's quoted as much for me as that one, and from Heavy Metal, you die, she dies, everybody dies. I don't know if you guys have seen Heavy Metal, but that's one of my favorite lines in that entire movie. Yeah. But yes, so do go see Kroll because the world building is phenomenal. The idea of the Spider Woman and her having the same name of Lissa. Oh my gosh, what a beautiful, and if you just overlook the acting, the story itself is so wonderfully done. Even the special effects are fairly decent considering the time. Some
of it's the Beast when he's like in the background is kind of weird, but they used like a camera angle to like make him huge or whatever,
and also had to kind of cut it up into different versions so that he could. Yeah, it looked weird, but that I would love to see either a sequel or a remake of Kroll. I think it'd be fantastic.
Sequel would be good.
Yeah,
I'm a bigger fan of sequels than I am remakes for the most part. 100%. Like Maverick, for instance, just destroyed in the.
Oh my gosh, it was so good.
Perfect example of like building on the nostalgia and keeping alive the heart of the story.
Yes,
and just it was a perfect mix of like fan service and new concepts, and it was good.
Yeah, it was really very good.
Anybody who's a Top Gun fan, if you haven't seen Maverick, what are you doing with your life right now?
It's so good. I mean, it is, and again, we watched the original. We watched Top Gun just like 2 days before
we did the same
Maverick.
Thing. Yeah,
and so man, the nostalgia level was way up here, and the humor was great. There was. Gonna get the girl, sure, right? You got to have that little bit that's in there and stuff, but really, really good. When I went to go see Kroll in the theaters in 1983,
yeah, me too.
I remember,
saw it in the theater.
Yeah, I remember thinking, this is a movie about what I love because it was so adventure D&D setup driven, right? That was just really, really great for that.
Yeah, and you felt like you had all the roles, all the character roles in there, and it was so good.
Yep. It's fun to look back now, and you see young Liam Neeson, you see young Hagrid, Robbie Coltrane, the actor that plays Hagrid from Harry Potter. I think it's Robbie Coltrane. So, but he's in there. Just lots of now it's fun to watch for those guys. So.
Yeah, and so go do see Kroll. It's very good.
Shout out Hart made a comment that I want to point out. He said that'd be a great setting for Spelljammer, and it would be because that palace was like intergalactic and it was showing up for a short period of time.
Yeah, so that was why at the very end you think his son would rule the galaxy because this planet-sized or this large castle spaceship landed, but at the end the castle disappears, it goes away, so they're still left in a fantasy world with bows and arrows and swords, and how does he rule the galaxy? I want to know that story. Why is that story not being told?
The chat is building it right now. It's Kroll with Beastmaster and Last Starfighter. We've got our Spelljammer mythos right there.
I'll go watch it.
Beastmaster, another one that I absolutely loved, and I had recently watched it, and of course made my wife really mad when his little weasel thing died. Yeah, spoiler. Poto or Kodo, one of them dies.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say made her really mad when you were, watching Tanya Roberts real intently, but
yeah. Tanya Roberts, let me tell you.
There are some things that you just remember seeing on the big screen.
That's right. Yes.
Like the Oracle in 300 for some of you who are younger. So
Stacey Jones in the chat said, Krull 2, the last Beastmaster. That's awesome.
Now, there was a Beastmaster 2.
Yes.
Which was absolutely horrible. I'm figuring Mark Singer had a balloon payment on his house because that was...
Which is worse, Beastmaster
Ferret
2 or Highlander 2?
Highlander 2 is worse than I mean, Highlander 2 is so bad they actually had to make a Highlander 3 just to ignore the fact that there was a Highlander 2.
I mean, that would never happen today, Star Wars Episode 7.
I know.
Woo! Looking at you,
going.
And yes, as Ash says, that it was a ferret. It was a ferret, not a, yes.
Ferret, weasel, they both do that tongue thing.
There are two things that were on here. The A-Team theory of game mastering is what Shadowheart said. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And then CM said, overacting? No one that plays D&D does that.
Oh, I know. That is Gaz to a T. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'm here.
But we need Gaz to be that big. He is just, from the first time we meet Gaz, he is in a whirlwind fight with some dust methods, some desert minions.
Sand silhouettes.
Yeah, yes. And, and just and then he's always gragging the wineskin and gulping it down. And maybe some of the wine's coming out of holes where he just got,
Well, the rest of y'all were being so serious and downer. I had to have somebody with a little bit, because that's what I did actually think about, doing more of a dark, brooding, type character. And I'm like, nah, we need someone who's going to be fun and adventurous for this, because we gotta bring this thing back up.
I already know the answer to this, but I hope Gaz makes it.
Yeah, me too. By the way, we did record the last of the episodes, so
if you missed the Facebook post, it's in the can. Mark, campaign 1 is a wrap of Red
plug for my favorite D&D live play podcast. I don't know if you guys have heard it. There's this great show called Red Dirt D&D.
Yes,
it's on Apple Podcasts and
really?
All the ones you love. Yeah, there's this great cast of characters that lead you into a Wild West style D&D campaign. It's got
like with trains and dragons?
Yeah, like it's got dust methods and dwarven sorcerers and noble cowboy paladins who for sure will live forever, and all kinds of crazy charecers.
Yes,
definitely check it out.
We've had a lot of fun with Red Dirt D&D, and I tell you, we new episode just dropped yesterday, and boy, as I put on our and I don't know if have you listened to the recent episode, Jeremy?
Yes, I'm caught up.
Okay.
The ending of it, I'm not going to give away what the ending is, but I was actually really proud because Connor has this beautiful speech at the end of it, and I was able to put in this incredible music for him. That the funny thing about me editing, so I just finished editing episode 116. We dropped episode 113 on Wednesday. That's how far ahead I am. So by the time 3 weeks go by and I listen to it again, it's almost new to me. So I had forgotten about that ending, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I was.
I'm sure for you guys being in the middle of it, it's very easy to just like live through it, and the events are happening,
Yeah.
so they kind of like fade. But when you're editing it, of course, Michael, you get to see a different perspective because you're not in the moment anymore. It must be fun and yeah,
It is. It's a lot of the biggest funny about it is, and I feel sorry for the rest of our cast because basically this is their only interactions, doing things like this, or when we go out to a con or something like that. For me, I get to be with my friends for weeks whilst I'm editing them. So to me, I don't ever lose any time. I'm basically hearing them every day anyway. So it's kind of fun for me. I feel kind of sorry for everyone else who's like they go 4 weeks sometimes without seeing the rest of the cast.
Yeah.
And I know that it's also hard. I think also when you're at the table, you don't know what it's going to sound like when it's all edited. I'm pretty sure it's got to be like that way for actors too in movies, that you really don't know what the final product is actually going to be. They you can kind of guess, but I think when Brook said it best when we did the pilot, and we all just came in and we were just kind of BSing around and doing this and that, and then when he listened to it and he first heard the train whistle and was like, oh, "There's a train whistle in that."
There wasn't a train in the studio where like, that didn't happen when we recorded.
my favorite sound effect you've done so like recently was when you did when Mokrin did a twin spell of haste and it went weep
Weep. Yeah.
yeah, I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah,
little stuff like that makes a huge difference. Like the little flavor sound that you add to it, like like the whistles and the sounds of the coyotes or the eagle screaming overhead really makes it immersive and brings you into the environment. And the music, oh my gosh.
Oh, the music is so much fun. Yeah. We've had so much fun finding music that just fits and works really well and makes sure that it kind of really pushes the storyline. Of course, that was the other thing was we do our jokes and we do have fun. Really, that you can find that on the outtakes. But what during the body of the story, I want it to be the story. And so many podcasts, they go off on tangents and they go off, and it's like, guys, you're falling away from the story. So let's stick with the story and put the tangents in the outtakes. That's fine. But to really drive the story on, I think it's one of the reasons why we've managed to do all of these in less than 120 episodes.
Yeah, you guys have really refined. I think, and your editing is probably a large part of it. Refined the action down. You've gotten rid of the extra like rules, figuring out part of it, and it really does make the story flow while still maintaining the gameplay part of it. Like you're still thinking about those roles, and when you're one number away from success or failure, it still feels great. You've retained all that like live play action without all the the rules like getting in the way, and it really does make it more of a cinematic experience. I think adding the outtakes was brilliant because that lets you into the human side of it and the players around the table, and we get to laugh with you guys and all the goofy stuff. And even when pros are doing like you guys who have been you've been consistently playing together, being recorded for as long as you have, it's a different type of environment when you know that you're being recorded.
Yeah.
Like even right now, we're having this conversation. It feels a little different just because we know that our words are being, they're permanent. So it changes the way you act. And the outtakes let us know, you get these are real people doing the goofy stuff that everybody else that plays games does at their table as well. And it makes everybody more lovable, makes the characters more fun. And to me, it makes the actual recording and the editing and stuff make it even that much more immersive because it shows the effort that you're doing to distill it down to that cinematic experience.
Right, and those I was keeping those in the original, and because I didn't want to cut them out because I wanted to keep those in like up until about what episode. Someday I've got to figure out where I actually started the outtakes.
35, 42?
Yeah, somewhere around there. And I kept those in because of that. I still wanted people to feel like, hey, these are people sitting around a table playing. But I didn't, and only sometimes I took them out if they got like way too off. Once I realized, oh, wait, I can actually put these at the end and not ruin the story. That really helped out a lot, I think. And
I think it was Johnny's idea for the record scratch, which was just brilliant, right?
Yeah.
For the and then something happens, and then something happens. I mean, it's gotten to the point where now, Jeremy, does this happen to you? It's gotten to the point where now where like I'm listening to a round table and the music closes in the round table, and then I'm like, wait, there are no outtakes.
Where's the record scratch?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was a round table. The whole thing was an outtake.
Yeah. I agree.
In the chat, Hal asked about something that very, very soon, as soon as I get my rear end gear, watch for something on the Red Dirt TikTok. But we had at MiracleCon, and we talk about this a little bit on our roundtable coming up, but we had a second cosplay at MiracleCon, and it was Makrin.
It was Makrin.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Oh, it was rock solid. It was awesome. Check out. Now I'm going to put myself, on tomorrow afternoon. By tomorrow afternoon, check out our TikTok because I'll post the video of how Ethan cosplaying as Makrin may have changed Makrin's dice rolls, because when he rolls the dice, it's magic. And so we played around. I won't tell you what happened, but let's just say that I was gifted something that may have very well changed Makrin's destiny in the next 5 episodes.
Yes.
So
yeah, and
really, really cool.
The bigger news to come out of that is that Ethan won 3rd place as Makrin.
Yeah,
as Makrin, as a basically homebrew character, wins 3rd place at the cosplay contest. His cosplay was that good.
Yeah.
Yep. Hal's kids are bringing the freaking heat when it comes to the costumes.
Woo!
Oh yeah.
And Poppy got an upgrade. We got Poppy with an Aldonza cloak and a new hat, and was no longer Polly Leaf Tea, with the dress.
Mm-hmm.
It was adventure.
Lee Teeth.
I always say that wrong. Anyway, it was Adventure Poppy, and so both of them were just The standard has been set, boys and girls.
Yeah.
If you want to come in with some cosplay, woo! You gotta beat these kids. It's awesome.
If you want to do cosplay for the 1.5 campaigns, you're gonna have to get some furry costumes.
Who's gonna be Wildfire?
Well, we've got in campaign 1. I think have we talked enough about 1.5 about who's playing what to talk about it?
We've talked about it a little bit on the birthday special, which you can watch right here on YouTube.
Yeah, so we can watch it on the YouTube channel right here, Red Dirt channel. And so I'm playing a jackalope folk. We've got Johnny playing a rat folk. We've got Kiri playing an awakened possum.
Awesome.
We've got Ash playing a knoll.
Yes.
We've got Connor playing a Yodi, which if you'll listen to the old episodes of Red Dirt back at episodes 30-ish, there's the Yodis that we ran into. And then so all of us are furries except Brook. He's a spider.
It's a furry spider?
It's a furry spider.
There was a talk about, I was really not pushing hard, but I was really trying to make a case for, you need someone normal to interact with these people and other folks. You need a human, and immediately got shot down because we weren't going to do the Christopher Robin campaign with the one human and all of his animal friends. So I went for as creepy as I could, and it's a spider. So it's a spider kid.
Is that really creepier than a rat folk necromancer?
Okay, that's true.
No, well, see, what it's going to be, and what I'm going to love is the fact that for the Brooks character is he looks creepy, but the actual creepy person in the entire group is actually Johnny. And not Johnny himself, Johnny's character.
Well, no, I think you're right.
Play what you know. Play what you know.
I think you're good. Oh, yeah.
He's not here. He couldn't make it tonight. We can make fun of Johnny all we want.
We could have we missed an opportunity.
We could have roasted Johnny the entire time.
I'm still comfortable with him for saying that I only have 2 friends. When I'm pretty sure I almost have 4.
Hey, and by the way, if you didn't know, Jeremy actually shows up in a couple of our outtakes because of conversations that Johnny has.
Yeah, he rudely brought me into them.
That's
Yeah.
true. So in the chat, Jeremy, how many are people you hired and how many are your friends in the chat?
I'll never tell.
Thank you, all the newbies that came out tonight and first timers.
Yeah.
It's so awesome to see you guys. So,
Yeah.
Boss Staninople, CM.
Mhm.
There's other
Good,
names
good.
that I haven't seen in a long time. So, number 2 Jones, it's good to see you, man. That's awesome. So,
Yeah, and as Hal mentioned that to Connor that it was an amazing job of playing Connor in the last episode. It was so good. So Connor, yeah, kudos.
yeah,
And Connor, it's so amazing to and what we're gonna do is after we're done with these episodes, we're gonna have 3 basically round tables talking about the campaign, and then we'll have one episode talking about the coming campaign, and this will give people a chance to interact with us. If you're a Patreon, I think some levels of Patreon you could actually leave us a voice message and
yeah,
ask
$10
a
and up, you can
question.
get in, and that'd be awesome.
So you can ask questions of us, and so it'll allow us to kind of reflect on how much we have changed. Oh my gosh, our characters by themselves have changed so much in the past 120 almost episodes. But the players, I think the actors ourselves, we've changed, we've grown, we've made friends, which is really kind of cool. Which is what a
You lived through COVID.
What's that?
You lived through COVID.
Yeah,
Yeah, we lived through COVID.
Yeah.
That was
Johnny
really
twice.
special. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to. It's on a serious note. I really think the podcast was great for things like the podcast, and the podcast itself are great for people that were stuck at home.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for me, it was I listened to the podcast when I was just doing chores around the house or doing some woodworking, or it was my like go working out, whatever. It was my go-to content to listen to make mundane tasks, more tolerable.
Yeah.
And being there with you guys during the story, listening to it, it takes a little bit of the edge off the being isolated, because you feel like you're still part of something awesome.
Yeah.
So I am really happy you guys were doing this. I think it's important you doing it when you did it, because a lot of groups couldn't play, and some people did it through Zoom like we did. But
Yeah.
that having that connection to other people doing the fun stuff that we love was big for me. I really enjoyed it. And I know I'm not the only person out there. So
Yeah.
thank you guys for
Yeah.
trudging through the digital airwaves to keep it going on Zoom when you guys were doing that stuff, or making it in person and stuff. It was pretty awesome.
Thank you. It's been a phenomenal ride, and so really looking forward to airing the next few episodes, and looking forward to the next one, seeing what we can do. We're coming near the end. Any final thoughts that you guys have? What are you looking forward to for the rest of 2022?
Oh,
All the different shows and games that are coming out that are celebrating nerd culture, and making the things that we were outcast for when we were kids
I know.
cool. It's amazing that a new generation of people gets to express this awesomeness and this creativity and be celebrated for it. Like, and things like World of Warcraft and other big huge like societal movements have helped as well. But Dungeons and Dragons, that's like the outlier nerd stuff that I never thought I'd see become the forefront. And I'm excited to seeing just how far that will go. The podcast world with all the different celebrity ones, and the homegrown ones like this one that are closer to the local communities, they've really made it an everyday kind of experience. I'm really thankful for that, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else will come of it.
Yeah. I'm also looking forward. You're right. I'm kind of jealous of my son that he can actually proclaim that he is a dungeon master, that he plays D&D, and not
No
really.
wedgies have ensued.
Yeah, and he's not been thrown into a locker. Of course, he's also like 6'5" and plays football, so he's not really going to be. Yeah. But it's really great that there's a whole generation of kids that can enjoy comic book movies. They can enjoy comic books and books that would seem nerdy and get you beat up. Reading Lord of the Rings, they can actually enjoy that, and it's wonderful that we live in that society. So yeah, there's a lot of things coming up over the next year, especially with the D&D movie. I'm very excited. There is still a possibility that maybe we might have a Red Dirt screening of it. I don't know. We're still kind of working on that. So
We're working on that, man. It's gonna be just great to see each other and enjoy that together. That is a goal that I really want to help in any way to make happen, and it's just been so great. That's been something for this year so far that I have really enjoyed, and that is getting to meet people that listen to the show and that are beyond just friends and family. I love seeing friends and family too, and we've got a group that's super tight, and I love you guys and gals. But then for me to meet people and be like, hi, I'm so and so. Oh, okay. Hi, I'm so and so in the chat. Oh my gosh,
yes,
you're
I know.
so-and-so, right?
That's what happened to me with Hal when we were at CinderCon. It's like I'm Hal. Oh my gosh, wait a minute, you're Hal. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And by the way, just real quickly, because we won't be back on before this next Friday. Apparently, we're going to be at the fairgrounds. We just found out today.
Magic happens and people offer things.
Yeah,
And
Mike Dadalow got in touch with us and said they've got some areas with the Oklahoma City board game community are going to be down there. Said, we've got a table if you guys want to be down there. So I'll be there at noon. Later on, of course, everyone else works on a Friday. I get off at noon because I get to work at like 2:00 in the morning. So I'll be there. Come by and see us at the fairgrounds. I don't know where.
Friday at the fairgrounds, starting what time and ending what time?
Noon to 10.
Noon to 10.
And I'm pretty sure there'll be information on the Oklahoma City board game community website. They will, or on Facebook, they'll have some information about where it's going to be. But we'll put out information. So follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We'll have information as well. But we know we're going to be at the fairgrounds next Friday. So from noon to 10. So come check us out.
That'll be awesome. That'll be awesome. Yeah, listen for the sound of goblin dice and the roar of the crowd for natural 20s and stuff. So wherever that might be in the gaming hall, I don't know. So
well, all right, guys, thank you very much. This has been Plausible Deniability. I'm Michael Cross.
I'm Brook Bullock,
and I'm Jeremy Beck.